Everybody loves a winner. We've seen that in the heavyweight division in recent times with Anthony Joshua. Everybody wants the AJ payday. They want the life-changing money. But his stablemate and longtime rival, Dillian Whyte, who wants a fight with Joshua, a rematch to the 2015 encounter, he's also quietly been building up his resume, his body of work overall, and also his commercial value. And because he is bringing money to the table now, there's a number of guys who want to fight him. We've seen it before and after the Chisora fight, which he won in devastating fashion, a number of guys calling out Dillian Whyte. So that's what I want to go through in this video, because some of it, I often read some of the stuff that comes out and I just think, what are some of these people on? It's not so much the fighters themselves, it's often their representatives. As Anthony Joshua said recently, some people overestimate their station in terms of what they can demand, and even in this case, who they can call out, because we've got a Johan Dorper call out saying he wanted the winner of Whyte Chisora, that they could come and fight him. We've also got Joseph Parker saying he was dreaming of a white Christmas. And then obviously Darrell Miller is making a lot of noise, but not really doing much of note. So we'll start with Joseph Parker, because there was a story that came out a couple of days before the December 22nd fight between Whyte and Chisora that really caught my eye. Because back in New Zealand, David Higgins, Joseph Parker's promoter, has been banging the drum with the local media saying how Joseph Parker is in line for a Dillian Whyte rematch, that it's just, just around the corner. And he's been saying that for a while. He's been sort of pulling on the strings of, it was a controversial loss. Whyte will need to, for his own good conscience, need to come back and, settle the score. Joseph Parker deserves a rematch, yada, yada, all that sort of stuff. The world's smallest violin is playing for Team Parker, and Higgins especially. But, from what he was saying to an outlet called News Hub, if Joshua fought Wilder or Fury, Whyte beat Chisora, then Whyte would be left without an opponent, leaving Joseph Parker the most viable option, Higgins suggested. Okay, we'll come back to that later. All options are on the table. We would be willing to fight the winner. We wouldn't shy away from any of those British opponents, but that being said, the deal must be right. If the deal isn't right, then we could look to America, or we could look at staging something back here in New Zealand. And then Joseph Parker, after the fight, said he was dreaming of a white Christmas. And to me, he might be dreaming for a while. I'm a New Zealander, and I liked the fight back then, but, I didn't really have too many qualms with the result. Sure, the accidental head clash was unfortunate, but it's boxing. Ultimately, for me, Joseph Parker didn't do enough in the mid-rounds, where he sort of went into some energy-saving mode, and ultimately, he left his run too late. He knocked Whyte down in the final round, but it wasn't enough. He didn't do enough for me to win that fight, regardless of the headbutt. So I didn't have a problem with the result, and I don't necessarily have a burning desire to see that rematch. We've been there, done that, got the postcard for me. Joseph Parker had his shot, and it wasn't so controversial enough for me that I want to see it again anytime soon. It's not like after the Whyte and Chisora fight where I wanted to see that immediately, because I thought Chisora won that first fight. This one here, for me, there was no real doubt. I mean, Parker needed to do more, and he didn't. But in terms of what they're saying here, saying that Joseph is the most viable options, according to David Higgins, if Joshua fights Wilder or Fury. I think that is Higgins' position, but I think for many boxing fans, Joseph Parker isn't really in the conversation right now. And that's no disrespect to Joseph Parker. It's just a reality that people are looking elsewhere. There's been talk of a Povetkin and Whyte fight. There is the potential for the WBC to order an interim title fight between Dominic Breazeale and Dillian Whyte. From the chatter I'm seeing online, and not just in New Zealand, but, because the majority of my YouTube audience is not from New Zealand, it's from elsewhere. People are looking more towards those fights, or even a Luis Ortiz fight for Dillian Whyte. There is a small minority of fans who seem to want the Joseph Parker fight next, come hell or high water. And I just don't see it. But the way that Higgins is talking, all options are on the table, but the deal must be right. He's thinking that he's still in the position where he can demand, a relatively big share of the pot. Joseph Parker, coming off 2 losses, is not going to get a 50-50 deal against Dillian Whyte or, Anthony Joshua. That's just a reality. They may not like that, and that's why they came back to New Zealand to fight an Alexander Flores. They didn't like the deals, the offers they were getting elsewhere, so they came back to New Zealand. But the next bit, we could look at coming back and staging something back here in New Zealand, the quote from Higgins. That tells me that the Alexander Flores fight, it must have done okay commercially, because if it hadn't of, why would they even mention that? Because that was one of the things I was looking out for. And from, the people that I knew that went to the fight, it was a virtual full house. There was 4,000 to 5,000 people there, not exact on the numbers, but it was 95% full from what people were telling me who were there. And the pay-per-view, well, it must have done okay, because why would they talk about coming back to New Zealand when they've just talked about this was likely the last fight in New Zealand for a long time? That was what they said before the Flores fight. But I'm getting off topic here. But I think Joseph Parker and Higgins, they are not really that high up in the queue right now for a Whyte rematch. Whyte has other things he could do right now and other fights that fans would want to see him in, rather than an immediate rematch with Joseph Parker, which I'm not that jazzed about. It'd be a good fight, sure, and Joseph Parker have a great chance of winning it. But he had his chance the first time around and he didn't take it. The next one, this is one that really caught my eye, and I had a good laugh about this. So World Boxing News had a so-called exclusive with Johan Dorper and his manager. So Johan wants to fight the winner of Whyte Chisora 2. Manager Mehdi Amir told World Boxing News. Johan thinks it will be Dillian Whyte. This is because he looks stronger in his last 2 fights, but if Chisora wins, that's no problem too. All the people know in boxing, it only takes one punch and there's a knockout, just like Derek did versus Carlos Takam. But Johan and I both stay confident in predicting a Dillian Whyte win. Let's see what happens, and then at the same time, make a fight for Johan with the winner. The winner of that fight needs to try KO me, this is Dorper here, if they want to fight bigger fights in their careers, like against Wilder or Big Baby Miller. People know I beat Helenius by huge KO in 2016. I fought for the WBA title in France. Also, Big Baby Miller could not KO me in my last fight. Johan Dorper, he seems to be living in a world of delusion, because this guy is barely top 30. He's potentially slipped out of the top 30 now. He's been on the slide for a while now. He fought Darrell Miller back in April 2018, and it wasn't a great fight. He had 6 good rounds in him, and then he was battered for the rest of it. So this assertion that the winner needs to come fight him, the winner needs to fight him to get bigger fights against the likes of Darrell Miller or Deontay Wilder or whoever else, it is really quite delusional. Johan Dorper is not in the conversation, and Johan Dorper and his manager might be the only 2 people on the planet that, are the ones that are calling for a Dillian Whyte and Johan Dorper fight right now. Dorper is very much so on the outside looking in. It's a fact. He is on the slide. His last fight was in April against Miller. Didn't look good. Got battered for the final 6 rounds. Really, I read this and it's just like, why are they even reporting this sort of stuff? Because it is just complete lunacy. It really is. It really is. I had a good chuckle when I read that stuff. Let's see what happens. At the same time, make a fight with Johan for the winner. I mean, that really is optimistic stuff. The winner of that fight needs to try KO me if they want the bigger fights in their careers. They've already had the bigger fights. Johan Dorper is not a big fight anymore. He is not a big fight. Dillian Whyte could get a Miller fight right now, but he's not interested in giving Darrell Miller a leg up right now. But also because he's title bound. He's on the brink of a title. He's probably not going to fight Miller, and as we know, Darrell Miller is not really taking any risk at all right now. He's got a fight, so this is recorded on the 30th of December 2018, this video, and posted on the same day. Darrell Miller has a fight coming up on January the 18th. The opponent is not known. So that tells you all about Darrell Miller and the level of guys he'll be fighting, because it won't be anyone good. But when the opponent is wheeled out, we will be told what a challenge it will be. And then they'll wheel out that other line that they've been using in the latter part of 2018. Darrell Miller, the most active heavyweight in the heavyweight division. Which is patently not true, because he's only fought 3 times in 2018. There's other guys, Luis Ortiz, Dillian Whyte, Joseph Parker, all fought 3 times. And better opposition, I might add. Anyway, Darrell Miller, he's, after the Dillian Whyte win, he's called out Dillian Whyte, said, if he wants to come see me, or, it's the normal sort of stuff, but he's got no intention of fighting him, because he's got another fight right now. in a couple of weeks. We know that these two are not going to get into the ring anytime soon. But when they do, it will be a fun fight. But, you know, it's one of these things where boxers talk and they talk and they talk. But when you scratch behind the surface and you look at it, how much is really there? How much is really true? And in Miller's case, for example, he's been calling out Deontay Wilder, you know, for some time. But the guy won't sign up to the clean boxing program. He can never be ranked in the WBC if he doesn't sign up to it and take part in, you know, year-round in competition and out of competition tests. But, you know, he's trying to front that, you know, Deontay Wilder is avoiding him, that Deontay Wilder is ducking him. But really, Darrell Miller's ducking reality. And I've been on Darrell Miller a bit in 2018, but that's because he's a missed opportunity. The guy's got a lot of talent. He is a top 10 guy, but we just don't know how good because he won't show us. And his next fight, it's not going to be anyone good. We know this. And maybe even the one after that. He talks about wanting to beat a Brit and all this sort of stuff. But really, he's looking for a big AJ payday, or possibly a Dillian Whyte payday. But he'll want his stock, you know, he'll want his cut to be a decent enough cut to make it worth his while. Because after all of these guys do, it's prize fighting, I get it after all. But some of the level of delusion among some of these boxers, Johan Dorper being an example, or, you know, Joseph Parker and his manager thinking they are that close to a Dillian Whyte rematch. They are not, unless they accept a much smaller cut the second time around. And even then, it's not going to be next. It'll be after Dillian Whyte loses, and it could possibly be one of the more lucrative options around for Dillian Whyte. We'll have to see. Anyway, that's it from me.